Welcome friends to the Secret Doctrine webinar. This is our 5th class, and today we are going to begin to explore the 3rd stanza of the Secret Doctrine. This is what we are going to do for the remaining of this series, this class and next class. The 3rd stanza of the Secret Doctrine, which is the stanza that describes the beginning of manifestation. So let us see how Blavatsky described this stanza. She called it the awakening of cosmos. See that cosmos is spelled with a K. Later, after she wrote the Secret Doctrine, she said that the cosmos with a K normally refers to the whole universe, and cosmos with a C refers to the solar system. Now, she said that in the Secret Doctrine, the proofreaders, that the group of people that was helping her, many times missed this difference. So we cannot rely completely in this difference of spelling in the Secret Doctrine. And actually, since this shloka talks about the solar system in particular, although this can be applied to the whole universe, I think that the spelling would be more appropriate with C, as the regular word in English is. But in any case, Blavatsky describes this stanza as follows. The reawakening of the universe to life after pralaya. It depicts the emergence of the monads from their state of absorption within the One, the earliest and highest stage in the formation of worlds. The term monad being one which may apply equally to the vastest solar system or to the tiniest atom. So basically it's the reawakening of the universe, meaning that this is a cyclic process. Where the monads, which are the divine sparks, they emerge again from their state of unity. So this is a process of differentiation where the monads that were active in a previous universe now reawaken. Now she says the term monad is a general term that that refers to the divine spark at any level, the level of the divine spark as it is expressing itself through atoms or through human beings or through celestial beings. So that's the general description. When we go to the stanza itself, we see that it begins right away with the process of reawakening. The first shloka says, "The last vibration of the 7th eternity thrills through infinitude. The mother swells, expanding from within without, like the bud of a lotus." So you see that there are several elements here. The last vibration of the 7th eternity. Remember, we said that the word eternity referred to an eon or an age, and that just as the period of activity of the universe lasts for 7 ages, then we can say that the period of rest also lasts for 7 ages. So the last vibration that is there at the end of pralaya, of the period of rest, thrills through infinitude, and then it produces this effect. So let's see what Blavatsky says about this. She says that this last vibration of the 7th eternity that we just explained was foreordained by no god in particular, but occurred in virtue of the eternal and changeless law which causes the great periods of activity and rest, called so graphically and at the same time so poetically the days and nights of Brahma. So in the Judeo-Christian tradition is the idea that God says, let us create, a universe, a cosmos, or the world. Blavatsky begins by saying this beginning of the universe, according to the esoteric philosophy, is not something that is ordained by any conscious entity that may be comparable to God, but is just part of the law, which is the essence of the universe. There is a cyclic law which is always at work, whether the universe is in a state of activity, manvantara, or in a state of rest, pralaya. So the idea here is that naturally there is this swinging from one state to the other without the need of one particular entity to ordain this change, because then we have to presuppose that this entity exists as separate from everything else. Remember that in the esoteric philosophy, the state of unity is no entity. It is the essence of being that Blavatsky called beingness, but it's not a particular entity separate from creation, for example. And the idea is that the periods of rest are like the nights of Brahma, which is, in Hinduism, is a god, but it can also be interpreted as the whole cosmos. So the nights are pralaya, the days are the period of activities or manvantara. And then the second part says the mother swells, expanding from within, without, like the bud of a lotus. So if most of you probably know what a lotus is, but that is a picture of the bud of a lotus, and the idea that it swells and expands, Blavatsky, or at least in this metaphor, the expansion is this kind of unfolding, this kind of opening up of the lotus. So it's not necessarily, as Blavatsky is going to talk about, an expansion as when we are blowing up a balloon. It's rather an expansion as a kind of unfolding. And we are going to see that in Blavatsky's explanation. So she says, this expansion from within without of the mother, called elsewhere the waters of space, universal matrix, etc. Remember that the mother is the feminine principle in nature, the substance that is going to give rise to what we call matter in all its different states. And so she says this expansion from within without does not allude to an expansion from a small center or focus. Not being an increase in size, for infinite extension admits of no enlargement, this expansion was a change of condition. It means the development of limitless subjectivity into as limitless objectivity without reference to size or limitation or area. So the current scientific view that the universe is expanding from a center that in the Big Bang, began to expand, is not really supported by the esoteric philosophy. At least that is what seems to be the meaning. Of course, we are talking about here of planes that are far higher than the physical plane, which the science is trying to learn about, is the last plane that is differentiated. We are here just beginning to differentiate on the highest plane, on the first plane. So it may be that the reflection of this expansion on the physical plane appears as an expansion of the universe. But what Blavatsky says is that the universe is always infinite, and that this expansion that the shlokas talk about is an expansion only figuratively speaking. It's the unmanifested blooming or blossoming into the manifested aspect. So it's matter that is invisible, that is unmanifested, into some kind of matter that is visible now, at least visible to the celestial beings, not to us, because again we are talking of the highest plane. So this expansion is a change of condition, as she says. And she says, the ever to us invisible and immaterial substance present in eternity, through its periodical shadow from its own plane into the lap of Maya. So the ever invisible immaterial substance, this pre-cosmic substance, which is eternal, throws a shadow, its own shadow that is periodical from time to time with each Manvantara, throws its shadow on the plane of illusion. So this is a similar, this is in quotation marks, so it's probably a commentary that to the shlokas that was in the book of Dzyan, in the original that Blavatsky had access to. And you see this play with the idea of shadows is similar to the myth of the cave in Plato. He also would say that what we see are shadows of the real. And so Blavatsky says all this teaches the hidden science. All this teaches the hidden science is but the temporary reflection, the shadow of the eternal ideal prototype in divine thought. So that's a similar idea to what Plato would talk about. So whether there are different ways of trying to explain what we observe in the universe from a scientific point of view. There are different theories. Of course, the more prevalent one is the Big Bang right now, but there are several inconsistencies in that theory, and they have to make modifications that are really hard to understand how they could happen so that the Big Bang serves to explain what we observe. To me, it is obvious that we don't really know what is going on yet. And as we are going to see, the stanzas talk about something that is a problem for science. So whether the universe on the physical plane is expanding or not, obviously from a scientific point of view, it seems obvious that it is expanding. But it may be that we are seeing also some other aspects, or that there are other aspects that we are not seeing that don't let us understand the whole picture. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. I mentioned this theory of the cyclic universe with the brains like BRANES, where the idea of expansion is not so prevalent, is not so important. And that seems to be more in tune with what can be understood from the shlokas. And then Blavatsky says Fohat, which is this cosmic energy that is going to manifest, runs the Dhyan Chohans, these are the celestial beings, Dhyan Chohans' errands, and causes the ideal prototypes to expand from within without. See, she uses again the same figure, and then she says that is to cross gradually on a descending scale all the planes from the noumenon to the lowest phenomenon. Noumenon, remember, is a cause. Phenomenon is the effect, the appearance that cause takes. And she says, so there is a gradual expansion into the lower planes, into more and more concrete kind of matter, to bloom finally on the last plane into full objectivity, the acme of illusion, the grossest matter, which is the physical plane. So that's the basic idea. She's trying to explain what this expansion from within without means in the shlokas. Then the second shloka says, the vibration, this last vibration of the seventh eternity that the first one talked about, the vibration sweeps along touching with its swift wing simultaneously the whole universe, and the germ that dwelleth in darkness, the darkness that breathes or moves over the slumbering waters of life. So you see, this again is interesting. The shloka says the vibration sweeps along, touching with its swift wing the whole universe. And there is this adding clarification, probably from Blavatsky, that says simultaneously. It touches the whole universe at the same time. So again, this denies the idea of an expansion from a center that little by little is increasing in size. The idea, maybe we could think that this pre-cosmic matter, which is filling the whole space, because it is the space. Remember that we said substance and space are two aspects of the same principle. So there is a space, infinite space, which is filled by infinite, or the whole infinitude is filled with this pre-cosmic substance. So if we are talking about the manifestation of the whole universe, this pre-cosmic substance at once, everywhere, would appear as the subtlest of the cosmic matter, the real ultimate atoms in the sense of non-divisible. So you have nothing, this is the pre-cosmic substance, and poof, the cosmic substance appears. This is when the vibration somehow changes, the last vibration of the seven eternity somehow changes and makes this pre-cosmic matter appear as the still undifferentiated cosmic matter. And this substance has in itself the germ. The germ is like the source of life and intelligence and matter, which is activated when the vibration touches it. Now, all these things that we are talking about, vibration, as we are going to see, vibration, germ, space, pre-cosmic substance, these are all aspects of one single principle. We talk of them separate. It's like if you say there is something that is heavy, that is green, that is warm. All these are qualities of one single object. So the ray, the space, the substance, the vibration, the germ, these are all aspects of one single principle. But when we have to explain it in words, it looks like there are different principles here, separate from each other, going on. Now, remember always that this all comes from a unity. So let's see what Blavatsky explains. I explained a little the first part. She doesn't really talk much about it, the vibration touching the whole universe at once. And then she goes on, or the shloka goes on, and the germ, it touches also the germ that dwelleth in darkness, the darkness that breathes or moves over the slumbering waters of life. So Blavatsky explains the breath of darkness, darkness being Parabrahman, the Absolute, moving over the slumbering waters of life, refers to the primordial matter with the latent spirit in it. So we have this primordial matter, this pre-cosmic substance that has the spirit latent in it. You see how they are one. These are two aspects of the same. These waters of life, or chaos, which is the female principle in symbolism, the spirit would be the male principle, are the vacuum to our mental sight in which lie the latent spirit and matter, which when manifestation begins, differentiation sets in and manifestation really begins, spirit and matter appear as being different, but not yet, not in the first stages of manifestation. There is not yet differentiation. And then she says, vacuum in the sense of space, but not of empty space. And she quotes an axiom that was used by the Greeks and alchemists: nature abhors a vacuum. So when we say vacuum, we are saying nothing differentiated inside, but there is the idea that space itself is substance. So the idea here is that the breath that moves over the slumbering waters of life, and this of course reminds one of the phrase or the verse in the Bible where the Spirit of God is moving upon the face of the deep. These two principles, in the view of the esoteric philosophy, are two aspects of the same: the male and the female, the spirit and the matter. So now the first one is, remember, let us recap so we see the whole process. The first sloka is about the last vibration of the seventh eternity thrilling through the universe and making the matter, the primordial matter, to swell, to begin to manifest. And that vibration touches the whole universe at once. And that vibration is awakening the germ which has latent the spirit. And then the third sloka says, darkness radiates light, and light drops one solitary ray into the waters, into the mother deep. Remember that darkness is used for the absolute, for Parabrahman, because it is beyond anything we can conceive of. So there is a radiation in the absolute within this darkness, which is called the light. And this light drops one solitary ray into the waters, which is this primordial matter or substance. Blavatsky says the solitary ray dropping into the mother's deep may be taken as meaning divine thought or intelligence impregnating chaos. This, however, occurs on the plane of metaphysical abstraction, or rather the plane whereon that which we call metaphysical abstraction is a reality. So she's showing here the divine thought is already differentiated. The divine thought is already the manifested logos. So this is going to happen also when manifestation and differentiation is already in its way to keep on expanding. So she says this can be taken in that way, but in the process of the stanza we are talking about actually what is happening earlier in what we can call the first logos. So I'm going to give a diagram to show that. So at this point the third stanza is talking about is that within the absolute, which is this darkness that is represented by this dark circle, light appears, which Blavatsky says is symbolized with a white dot within the circle. This light is the unmanifested logos. Of course, this is light when comparing it to the darkness of the absolute, but it is still unmanifested. That light is like an opening within the absolute through which the ray may come, the ray of the logos. So light radiates and it drops one solitary ray. Blavatsky explains that this solitary ray, the idea of solitary, is because it is the one single source from which everything will be produced. So she says everything can be, all the diversification we see can be reduced to this one single source. And for this reason there is the emphasis, one solitary ray. Sometimes in Hinduism they talk about the one without a second, with the idea that there is a oneness that is not one and then another and then another. There is a oneness that is the whole, a oneness without a second, a oneness that is all. So this solitary ray, I think the shloka is trying to give a similar image. It is a ray, and it's not that there will be another ray different from it. It is the only ray that is behind everything. Of course, as we have seen, that ray will differentiate in 7 rays, let's say, or that ray will first give origin to the triangle, to the 3 fundamental principles that are the foundation of manifestation, and this triangle will manifest as the 7 rays, which are the 7 highest celestial beings. And it is through these beings, which are the vehicle of the universal mind of Mahat, through these beings, then the ideas that this shloka or stanza is talking about, the primordial ideas in the Logos, are impressed in matter, in Maya, in illusion, by means of these 7 beings. But right now we are at the point in the stanza where this one solitary ray falls into the waters of life, which is the primordial matter. Again, I must repeat that the ray, the waters, the germ, the light, these are all one single principle. We put diagrams like this as if they were separate, just for us to understand it at the level, at the conceptual level. But this is all happening inside every single primordial atom, which has in itself all these principles. And then the shloka goes on and says, the ray shoots through the virgin egg. The ray causes the eternal egg to thrill and drop the non-eternal or periodical germ, which condenses into the world egg. So now the shlokas shift the images that are used here, and then we have the image of the egg. So there is an eternal egg, which is virgin, which is undifferentiated. And now when this ray shoots through this virgin egg, produces what is the periodical egg, which is more condensed. This is the world egg. So if we take the figure biologically, we could say one is the egg that is within the chicken, and then when the egg is dropped, and as science knows, the egg within the chicken is flexible, malleable, is not hard. And then when that egg is dropped, then the egg hardens and acquires its own form. So that is more or less the image that the shloka is giving. There is a formless, eternal virgin egg, which is this primordial substance. When the ray shoots through the egg and causes differentiation, causes it to thrill, then the non-eternal egg, which is the world egg, the matter that is going to give origin to the world or the solar system or the universe, then it is dropped, and now this is a matter that has a form of its own, in a sense, is manifested. So let's see what Blavatsky says. The virgin egg, being in one sense abstract eggness, or the power of becoming developed through fecundation, is eternal and forever the same. And just as the fecundation of an egg takes place before it is dropped, so the non-eternal periodical germ, which becomes later in symbolism the mundane egg, contains in itself, when it emerges from the said symbol, the promise and potency of all the universe. So the other aspect of this image of the egg is that within the egg, in a more or less homogeneous condition, is everything that is needed to create the chicken, for example. So this primordial cosmic matter, now we were talking the pre-cosmic substance, or pre-cosmic matter if we want to call it, would be like the virgin egg. And then when it is fecundated, when it is dropped, when it is manifested, we have the cosmic matter. Now it's cosmic, now it's manifested. It's still homogeneous, but from this cosmic matter, everything in the universe will develop. So you see how these shlokas are talking about the transition from pre-cosmic into the beginning of the cosmic condition. She says the virgin egg is the microcosmic symbol of the macrocosmic prototype, the Virgin Mother, chaos, or the primeval deep. So the idea is that if we are referring to the universe as a whole, then we talk about the Virgin Mother, the pre-cosmic substance that fills the whole universe. Now, when we come to talk about a particular system, whether it is the solar system or the Earth, then that microcosmic symbol is the symbol of an egg. Probably if you are talking about the whole universe, you cannot talk about any form. But when you talk about the solar system or the Earth, the idea of an egg may be more appropriate than when you are talking about the whole. So that is probably why the Virgin Mother is a macrocosmic symbol of the virgin egg. And Blavatsky says the male creator, under whatever name, in any tradition, springs forth from the virgin female, the immaculate root fructified by the ray. Cosmos as receptive nature is an egg, fructified, yet left immaculate. Let us stop there. Blavatsky explains that this is the philosophical background for the Christian idea that Jesus was born that Jesus was born from a virgin, from the Virgin Mary. And she says the idea is that the primordial matter is virgin first because it is undifferentiated, but even when it begins to differentiate, remains immaculate in the sense that this differentiation is something that happened by virtue of its own nature. In the Christian idea, there was no external source, physical external source, for Mary to be pregnant. So it was the Spirit of God. But this is another way of saying, if we interpret this philosophically, that there was something in Mary itself that produced the fecundation. There was no external source. So the idea with this is the same. This primordial cosmic matter in itself has the fecundation property, so to say, that will give rise to the universe. Again, I think the whole idea with this is to avoid the duality of powers, like there is an external God that shapes matter or that fecundates matter. There is a Mahatma letter where they say, we believe in matter alone, but of course not physical matter, and they say this matter is the same as spirit, is the same as energy. This primordial substance is one principle that has all these potentialities within. So this is why she says that even though the egg is fructified, it is yet left immaculate. Once regarded as boundless, it could have no other representation than a spheroid. The golden egg was surrounded by 7 natural elements: ether, fire, air, water, 4 ready, 3 secret. So she's referring here to a Hindu myth or part of the Hindu mythology. The golden egg is the Hiranyagarbha. We will see the word later. The Hiranyagarbha is this golden egg with 7 layers, which give rise to the gods and to the universe. And these 7 layers, Blavatsky says, are the elements that are already manifested, the 4 elements already manifested because we are in the 4th round of evolution, and 3 more elements that are going to manifest in the next 3 rounds of evolution. So again, a diagram may help us visualize this, although the diagrams may look this as being separate principles, remember. So we have the ray, which shoots and thrills, makes the virgin egg, which is eternal, to thrill. Then that eternal egg is dropped, meaning it becomes manifested. And then we have the golden egg, which is the Hiranyagarbha, as we see here, which is the mundane egg. This is the essence of what is going to produce manifestation. And this is, of course, non-eternal. When the period of activity is over, this process will be reversed, and then everything will come back to the eternal virgin egg or virgin mother, and the mother will become, or this pre-cosmic substance will become a potentiality, therefore will be slumbering for 7 eternities, as we saw in the first stanza, until the vibration, the last vibration of the 7th eternity, thrills through the mother and awakens the mother for a new universe. So that's more or less the cycle. Now the fourth shloka says, then the 3 or triangle fall into the 4 or quaternary. The radiant essence becomes 7 inside, 7 outside. The luminous egg, Hiranyagarbha, which in itself is 3, and she says the triple hypostasis of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. This is in Hinduism, the 3 avastas. So the luminous egg, which is in itself 3, curdles and spreads in milk-white curds throughout the depths of mother, the root that grows in the ocean of life. As we are going to see, there are parts here that are quite scientific. So let's start little by little. Then the 3, the triangle, falls into the 4, the quaternary. And Blavatsky says in the commentary that in the book of Dzyan, these sacred numbers, 3, 4, 7, there will be references to 5, 12, are the basic symbols of everything. You know, remember Pythagoras, I think it was, that used to say that God geometrizes. I think this was repeated by Plato. And that is the idea that numbers and figures are symbols for these processes. So the 3 is the triple logos, the unmanifested aspect that we talked about, then the semi-manifested aspect, the father-mother, which we saw a little about it in the second stanza, and then the manifested logos. So there are 3 logoi, or a logos with 3 aspects, and that would be the triangle. This is like Blavatsky says, is the origin of all the different triplicities, trinities, triads in different traditions, religious traditions, where the gods are very frequently taught in as being 3 or 3 aspects of one. So that is a triangle, and that is the essence, the force, the intelligence that will make matter differentiate and develop. And the fact that it falls into the 4 can be interpreted in 2 ways. I mentioned this briefly. One of the ways is that there are 4 elements. There are the 3 logoi, represented by the triangle as we saw, the 1, 2nd, and 3rd logoi. And then there is a 4th element that is this cosmic matter. So from these 4 basic elements, the 3 aspects of the logoi, or the logos, and then the cosmic matter, from these 4 elements the whole universe appears. So this is one way of interpreting that the 3 is now 4. The other way is that when this manifestation begins, as these 3 elements begin to act on the 4th, which is the cosmic matter, that will produce 7 levels of differentiation. I mentioned in the past that mathematically the ways in which you can combine 3 elements, when you combine in all possible ways 3 elements, you get 7 different combinations. So you could say that the 3, these higher 3 principles, when they manifest and develop in the cosmos, they will be enclosed in 4 lower principles that are manifested from these 3. So we are going to see that later. I don't want to go into that too much right now, but these are 2 ways in which we can interpret this idea that the 3 fall into the 4. At the level of a human being, this second way, the 3 plus 4, 7, is what represents better our own situation, because there is in us what is called the higher triad, the self, Atman, the source of wisdom, Buddhi, and then the source of self-consciousness, Manas. This is called the higher triad, which is enclosed in 4 lower elements, which is our personality, our body, its more ethereal model, the linga sharira, then the vitality, prana, and then the kamic or desire nature. So the divine spark, which is triple, it has to express itself through these lower 4 principles, and that is a human being. So these 2 symbols will be useful to explain the manifestation of the universe on 2 different levels. Now, then the second part that said the radiant essence curdled and spread throughout the depths of space. She says from an astronomical point of view, now she's coming down all the planes to the physical, because remember that the stanza is still talking about the highest manifested plane, which is a very spiritual plane, and little by little that will become more and more concrete until we come to the physical plane. So on the physical plane, she says this is easy to explain, that radiant essence that spreads, that curdled and spread throughout the space, is the Milky Way, the world stuff or primordial matter in its first form. So if we talk about the galaxy on the physical plane, the primordial matter, the cosmic matter, physical matter that begins to, that we see in pictures that the telescopes are taking, is a kind of radiant dust. You see, the radiant essence is like this radiant dust that little by little begins to form different structures, eventually planets, stars. These are the nebulae. So from a physical point of view, this radiant essence can be referring to the nebulas. It is more difficult, she says, however, to explain it in a few words or even lines from the standpoint of occult science and symbolism, as it is the most complicated of glyphs. Herein are enshrined more than a dozen of symbols. So since she says that it's very difficult to explain it from that point of view, we will drop it. But there is something very interesting. let me read what she says here. This matter, whether you are thinking of it at the highest manifested plane or on the physical plane, which would be the cosmic matter before it assumes any form, this in the nebulae. This matter, which according to the revelation received from the primeval Dhyani Buddhas, is during the periodical sleep of the universe, of the ultimate tenuity conceivable to the eye of the perfect Bodhisattva, the perfect Adept, Mahatma. This matter, radical and cool, becomes at the first reawakening of cosmic motion, scattered throughout space, appearing, when seen from the earth, in clusters and lumps, like curds in thin milk. These are the seeds of the future worlds, the star stuff. So first let me say something about this idea of the revelation received from the primeval Dhyani Buddhas. The Dhyani Buddhas are the highest beings in the system, the first 7 rays, the 7 rays of consciousness that are the direct differentiation from the highest triangle, the manifested logos. And it is said that the adepts, the Mahatmas, they can in meditation, they can realize all these teachings, but only up to a certain plane. They can encompass, according to what Blavatsky and the masters themselves said, all the planes within the solar system, not only the physical plane, but also all the spiritual planes within the solar system, which is in itself a very deep attainment. But they cannot extend their consciousness beyond those 7 planes. The lowest 7 planes of the solar system, or the 7 planes of the solar system, they are the lowest plane of the universe as a whole. Now, there are these primordial beings, the Dhyani Buddhas, they can see beyond, because they really belong to beyond the solar system. The highest plane in the solar system is for them the lowest. So the adepts in the Mahatma letters that they wrote to some early theosophies, they say, most of what we say we have seen by ourselves. But when we talk about more universal things, we have the testimony from the Dhyani Buddhas, from these Ahis. Now, what kind of entities these Dhyani Buddhas are, it's easy to imagine them as little angels or human being, or being similar to human beings. Of course, we cannot conceive what kind of awareness these Dhyani Buddhas are, but in some way, the adepts are able to enter in rapport, so to say, in tune with these Dhyani Buddhas, and receive a certain knowledge that belongs to the Dhyani Buddhas. So Blavatsky says that whatever she's talking about here is something that was received, so to say, from the Dhyani Buddhas. And then what she says is that, which is what I find interesting, is that this cosmic matter, which is at first undifferentiated, clusters itself in lumps like curds in thin milk. Now, this is an essential problem with the theory of the Big Bang. The problem is that if we postulate that the whole universe began from a center, as the Big Bang does, and that there was an explosion or whatever it was. Of course, we cannot say where did this matter come from. For all we know, at that point, science is not different from religion. And religion says God created matter out of nothing. Well, the Big Bang also, the matter that was there, seems to be created out of nothing, or matter, or the pre-forms of matter, the singularity that was in the Big Bang. But anyway, when this Big Bang expands, if it happens in that way, then all the atoms of matter would be evenly distributed in the universe, and then there would be no possibility of forming worlds or solar systems or galaxies. When they see the universe, they see that matter is not uniformly distributed, as it should be the case if the Big Bang happened just as an explosion. They see that matter is clustered with big spaces of emptiness in between. And because matter is clustered, then it can form all these systems. So when science is trying to explain this, they have to add the concept of inflation. This is something that they don't know that it happened, but they say if the universe came from the Big Bang, to explain what we see, we have to postulate that this happened. Why this happened, we don't know, but it must have happened if the Big Bang is correct. So what they say basically with the inflation concept is that the universe expanded almost instantaneously to pretty much the size of the universe that we have, and then from there it keeps on expanding at a far lower rate. So basically the idea of inflation is that the Big Bang appeared, then it expanded, and then it is expanding a little more, uniformly, not even in an uniformly pace, because now they are seeing that it seems that it's expanding faster. But when you introduce this idea of expanding in this absolutely, fast way, then that would break the uniformity of matter, and then you will get the clusters, the curves that the shloka talks about. Now you see, this inflation is quite similar to the idea that the vibration touches simultaneously the whole universe, because they have to postulate that something like that happened to explain this idea of the curves. So it is interesting to me that in the shlokas they specifically talk about that matter curdles, and that it aggregates, because that is the essential feature that the universe needs in order to have different planet systems, galaxies. Now, unfortunately, the stanzas or the shlokas that Blavatsky translated don't say how these curds appear in the milk of the primordial matter, and that is exactly what science doesn't know how to also. But the shlokas do mention this, and that is an essential nature of the universe in modern cosmology. Okay, so the next shloka says, we have seen that the vibration awakened, it thrills through the mother, then the eternal egg drops into the periodical egg, and then this homogeneous matter that is represented by the egg now appears as lumps, as clusters of matter. And then the shloka says, however, the root remains, the light remains, the curds remain, and still Oeaohu is one. So again, you see how, because at this point we may lose sight of the unity, now we have matter that is beginning to cluster, to differentiate, beginning to form systems. So, but the shloka says, everything, all the basic principles of the universe remain, and yet they are one. So let's see how Blavatsky explains. The root means pure knowledge, sattva, she says, eternal, nitya, unconditioned reality, or sat, satya. Satya is truth, sat is reality. Whether we call it Parabrahman or Mula Prakriti, for these two are aspects of the one. So the root refers to the absolute, to Parabrahman, and Mula Prakriti, which is an aspect of the absolute, this absolute abstract space. So the root remains, even though there is now manifestation, there is manifested matter, the root, which is Parabrahman and Mula Prakriti, remain. It's not that they are transformed and disappear. Now Blavatsky says that Sattva, she adds a note, is the name given among occult students of the Arya Sangha school. Arya Sangha was an early Buddhist teacher which founded the Yogacara tradition. Blavatsky says there are two Yogacharas schools, one that is Esoteric, which is the one we know about, but there is another esoteric aspect. So that's why she says among the occult students of the Arya Sangha school. So among them, Sattva meant the dual monad or Atma Buddhi in human beings. The Atma Buddhi on this plane corresponds to Parabrahman and Mula Prakriti on the higher plane. So that which at the cosmic level is Parabrahman and Mula Prakriti, at the level of a human being is Atma and Buddhi. Atma is a ray of the Absolute, if we want to put it that way, and then Buddhi is an emanation of Mula Prakriti. Now we have to remember that ultimately speaking, Atman and Paramatman or Parabrahman are one. So all this to explain what the root is. The root is the root of reality, which even though manifestation is there, the root remains. Then it says that the light remains. And the light is the same omnipresent spiritual ray which has entered and now fecundated the divine egg and calls cosmic matter to begin its long series of differentiations. So the light is the ray of the Logos which makes the egg thrill, be dropped, and then the ray is behind the differentiation of matter in all the manifested planes. So the root and manifested root remains, the manifested light remains, and the curds remain. The curds are the first differentiation, as we said. Probably, she says, refer also to that cosmic matter, which is supposed to be the origin of the Milky Way, the nebulae, as we said, the matter we know. So basically what this shloka is saying is that the root, this space and root substance remains, the light which represents the Logos remains, the curds which represents differentiated matter remains, and yet they are all one. Even in the midst of differentiation, all this is one principle. We are not talking about different principles, but different aspects of the one principle. And that one principle is called Oeaohu. Now let's see what she explains. So still Oeaohu is one. She says in the first paragraph what we were talking about. This refers to the non-separateness of all that lives and has its being, whether in active or passive state. Oeaohu, she says, is a secret word. She says it's a very powerful word, but the way to pronounce it is, there is a secret way of pronouncing it. And she says it has a lot of magical power, but it's very dangerous at the same time. And she says, I'm publishing it because without knowing the correct pronunciation, it doesn't produce any, it's not dangerous. So she says, Oeaohu is rendered the father-mother of the gods, father's mother. So meaning this one principle that has the two potentialities in itself. So it's the father-mother of the gods in the commentaries, or the six in one, or the septenary root from which all proceeds. In one sense, Oeaohu is the rootless root of all, hence one with Parabrahman. In another sense, It is the name for the manifested one life, the eternal living unity. So basically this idea of Oya Ohu is the unity behind everything, whether you talk about the unity on the highest plane or the unity within the manifested planes, that is Oya Ohu, is that unity. And then the last shloka that we are going to explore today, the root of life was in every drop of the ocean of immortality, Amrita. Amrita is the Sanskrit word for immortality. And the ocean was radiant light, which was fire and heat and motion. Darkness vanished and was no more. It disappeared in its own essence, the body of fire and water, of father and mother. So let's see how Blavatsky explains this. The fire, heat, and motion, remember that it said that the radiance was fire, heat, and motion. These are, of course, not the fire, heat, and motion of the physical plane, but the underlying abstractions, the spiritual causes, the noumena, or the soul of the essence of these material manifestations. Plato would say what this fire, heat, and motion that the shloka is talking about is the essence or the idea of the manifestation that we see on earth as fire, heat, motion. The things in themselves, she's referring to what Kant, the philosopher, and other philosophers too before Aristotle and others would talk about. There is something that is the thing in itself, and there is the appearance that that thing takes. Our senses only can relate to the appearance. Actually, the appearance is how our senses interpret the thing in itself. But as long as we are perceiving through senses, and we talked about this when talking about Maya, as long as we are perceiving through senses, we can only perceive the appearance of the essence, never the essence. Kant would say that we cannot perceive the essence. Perhaps the pure reason could, but in the Theosophical view, we can perceive the essence as we become one with it, not by using physical or psychic senses, but by becoming one with it. So this fire, heat, and motion is the essence of what we know on earth, which entirely elude the instruments of the laboratory, and which even the mind cannot grasp, although it can equally little avoid the conclusion that these underlying essences of things must exist. If you think about this in a deep way, you can understand how everything you perceive is an appearance that our senses present to us, but obviously this is an appearance of something that is real. Now, what is that something that is real? We cannot perceive it with our senses or grasp it with our minds, but we know it has to exist. That is what Blavatsky is saying here. So it is only on the spiritual plane that we can become one with it and therefore perceive it. And then the shloka said, darkness vanished and was no more. Blavatsky says, in this case, darkness is the allegorical representation of the condition of the universe during pralaya, or the term of absolute rest or non-being, as it appears to our finite minds, which now is not more, because now the universe is in its period of activity. And this repose, this rest, disappeared in its own essence, the body of fire and water, of father and mother. And then she says that this is fire and water, or father and mother, may be taken here to mean the divine ray and chaos. The divine ray representing the logos, the father, chaos representing the undifferentiated matter, which is the mother. So basically this is saying is that state of unity, or that state of rest, in which the only thing that was unity, disappeared with the duality. Of course, disappeared not in the sense that there is no unity any longer. Remember that the previous shloka was saying that even though there is duality and separation, Oea Ohu is always one. But to our senses, that state of unity disappears in the duality between father and mother, between fire and water. Because the duality, Blavatsky explains, is the foundation of manifestation. This is why she says all manifestation, ultimately speaking, is an illusion. There is no manifestation without duality. Unity is always the reflection of the non-manifested. Whenever there is manifestation on any plane, you have some kind of duality. So this is what we are going to explore today. This is half of the third stanza, where the beginning of manifestation and differentiation is explained. Then in our next class, which will be the last in this series, we are going to finish the third stanza. In a few months, we are going to continue with the second series, where we will explore the fourth, fifth, and sixth stanzas that talk more about how the earth was actually developed. So I hope to see you next week.